roommates, flatmates, cohabitants, housemates, whatever you want to call them, they have the potential to significantly reduce your living expenses. But are they worth it? Are roommates worth it? Let's talk about it.
Welcome to Net with Lizzy and Lissa, where we analyze hidden costs and empower you to make your own damn decisions in life. Each episode covers a different facet of life, and at the end of each episode, we each give our takes on whether we think something is net positive or net negative.
I'm Lizzy, a strategist and consultant with 17 years of experience in finance and investing.
And I'm Lissa, an accredited financial counselor and a personal finance content creator. We're best friends who talk about money
and everything else.
So, are roommates worth it?
Well, first up, let's run the numbers on roommates.
According to a 2024 study from Smart Asset, getting a roommate can save you over $1,865 per month in New York City.
Sheesh.
Man, that's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money. That's a whole rent.
Yeah. Yes, if you live in New York, yes.
Worth it.
The answer is yes.
A Rent.com survey during the pandemic showed 45% of people with one roommate were extremely satisfied with the living situation.
Yeah, it's almost half.
Yeah, it's not bad.
In that same survey from Rent.com, 37% of people reported cleaning habits to be their biggest pet peeve about their roommates.
Oh, hell yeah. For sure.
Yeah. I'm surprised it's not higher, actually.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Another survey from apartmentguide.com showed 1 in 4 roommates living with friends negatively impacted their friendship. 1 in 4. And 36% of people who lived with friends said they would never do it again.
Ooh, that is some juicy stuff in there. So let's talk about it. Are roommates worth it?
Whew. All right. Let's start with like a breakdown.
Yeah.
What are the big pros and cons of living with roommates?
All right. Pros, saving money. Big time. Saving money. I will also say as a big one, safety and security. There's always someone there. You forget to lock the door, you forget to turn off your curling iron, right? You can text someone, call someone.
Backup.
You got backup.
Yeah.
Hanging out with people.
Sure, company. Right? Yeah. Even if it's just, hey, what's up? How's your day? Mm-hmm. That's very different, especially working from home or during the pandemic. You might have gone days at a time without interacting with another human. So, having just another person there.
Connection, companionship.
Yeah, connection.
For financial costs, it's actually not just the rent, right? You can also share, obviously, utilities, toiletries, things around the house.
For sure.
So more cost savings.
Absolutely cost savings.
All right, the cons.
The cons. What's top of your list?
Well, cleaning habits was in that survey as one of the top reported pet peeves. Like, definitely, because if it's just you and you keep the place clean, and you didn't drop something on the floor, like you just know that, okay, it's going to stay clean because it's just me and I put things back where they're supposed to be.
Right.
Yeah.
You have your personal space. It's exactly how you want it at any given time. And I think it goes both ways for people who don't care about cleanliness, I guess, or, they're more chill. They don't have to deal with disappointing the other person or, nagging or whatever. It just creates tension if you have two different approaches to that kind of thing.
Privacy.
Yeah. That's a big one.
Privacy is huge, right? Whether or not you have your own room, because some people even have to share rooms.
Yeah.
But even if you had your own room, like the common areas, the shared areas, and just walls being so close to each other, you don't always fully have your own privacy.
Right. Like, I think in some roommate situations, you don't necessarily feel comfortable bringing friends over, bringing a date over, like as if it were your own space, because you want to be respectful of the common areas and, you don't know what that person has going on, or you just can't fully let loose the same way.
Yeah. Depending on how big the place is, just the shared common areas is kind of a con, right? Like you want to cook dinner, but your roommate's in there cooking dinner. So you got to wait or
Right. You might have to
eat
be
out.
strategic.
Yeah. I mean, obviously you guys got to communicate and talk and figure it out, but it's still something you wouldn't have to deal with if you didn't have a roommate.
Right. An extra level of consideration.
Yeah.
And just more freedom if it's all you.
Yeah. Any other major cons?
I think those are the big ones.
Yeah, those are the big ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's most things fit into those categories. Right. Like the total, independence, ability to have everything the way that I want it versus
Yeah.
having to share kind of all of those experiences.
Oh, well, another quick one is, like even though you're saving on money and saving on finances, you also have to rely on the other person to pay their rent on time or
Yeah.
pay their portions on time, and also rely on them to not mess up the place, right? Because security deposit
Right.
or getting even evicted, like you guys have that shared responsibility.
For sure.
For the place.
So I personally haven't had a lot of challenges with that, but I feel like I hear about that all the time from friends. So I think there's this pattern where there's typically one person who's like the adult, the
Right.
most responsible,
Yeah.
or maybe they tend to be the most organized. So whether their name is on the lease or it's a shared lease,
Yeah.
or they're the owner of the house, like in a house hacking situation, they tend to bear the brunt of the work and stress and liability when it comes to those things. So like, if we're moving, how are we coordinating this?
Yeah.
Who's organizing it? Who's making sure we get cleaners in? Who's dealing directly with the landlord
Yeah.
when we have,
The toilet's clogged. Who's going to
Exactly.
hit up the landlord? Yeah.
So it's an extra responsibility.
Yeah.
And then maybe the flip side of that too is like, okay, let's say you have a 2-bedroom apartment and there's one that's like the primary and then with an ensuite and then like ones that's not as nice. Having to kind of have those conversations. Who's got better parking? If there's only one parking space, who gets it? Who's paying more? Navigating those kind of decisions can be tricky depending on who you're dealing with.
Yeah. Yeah.
What about pets? Does that
Oh.
factor in? I know that's a big thing for
Oh,
you.
yeah, yeah. Well, so I have 2 dogs, and I have for the last 10 years. So anyone that I've ever lived with had to kind of deal with that in some way, shape, or form, because whether it's the barking or the fur,
For
the
sure.
big 2 primary things, whatever it is, like it's another living being and creature in the house. So like I've always, paid extra, whether that's to a landlord paying an extra pet deposit and pet rent even. But I've also contributed more towards cleaning and getting the house
Right.
cleaned and things like that.
So you're bearing more of that burden
Yeah.
because they're your dogs.
Yeah, but I don't think everyone with pets does that, right?
way.
It's always comes down to the money.
Right. But then the flip side of that, for you at least as a pet owner, you've been fortunate to have roommates who love your pets. And
Oh,
so
yeah.
they are an extra level of backup with them as well.
Oh yeah, now that I don't have roommates, and just thinking when both Alan and I go out of town, who's gonna watch them? It was so easy to have like roommates there willing to do it because they're already home.
Right.
They just a couple extra tasks to like walk them and feed them. Everything else is cool, but now I gotta like hire people or
Yeah. Yeah,
get
it's
people to
different.
come over.
It's
So
different
very
scenario.
So yeah, pets adds a whole different layer to roommate situations. Allergies, like I could never live with anyone that had cats because I'm allergic to cats. Funny story, quick story is my sisters, 2 of my sisters, I have 3 total sisters. 2 of them used to live together, and they rented from my brother. It was his condo up in the Bay Area. And between the 2 of them, they had 3 cats. But it was great because they were renting from my brother. I don't actually know what they paid. I'm sure they paid a hooked
Family
up
rate.
discount. And, they had pets. Everything was cool between the 2 of them. And, I was never going to move in with them. But, like, even just visiting, I couldn't visit them because of, like, allergies. So, and that's when I really learned that I was allergic to
Sure.
cats. So moving forward, I had never actually had a roommate with a cat, but I knew from then on, like, I would never be able to.
Yeah, it's a hard no.
Yeah, hard no. Like, I couldn't even function if I had a
Yeah, for sure.
cat
That's significant.
there. Yeah.
Damn.
So,
Okay. A lot
so
of
there's health reasons.
health reasons, absolutely. And that actually speaks to kind of other lifestyle habits, right? So
Smoking?
like smoking.
Yeah.
Smoking cigarettes, smoking weed. Even like sleep habits can be a thing, right?
Oh, yeah.
Is one person a total night owl? They're up. They want to be like,
All the
in a
lights
common
are
area.
on.
The lights are
Yeah.
on. That can be challenging depending on, the exact circumstances.
Well, it's funny enough, like if you look back to how many roommates have you had?
I think
throughout the years?
Total, I've had like 15, including partners.
Yeah, when I looked back when we were doing research for this episode, I think I looked at about 20 throughout the past 15 years or so. Some I've stayed with for like 10 years. Like, right? And then some people were just like a Craigslist roommate for 3 months or whatever. But throughout all those roommates, how many of them did you kind of pre-vet and talk about lifestyle things before moving in?
Zero.
Right? Like, who does that? Like, you find people because of the financial aspect for the most part. Maybe there are those big, like, things that you look for, right? Like, I can't live with a cat because I'm allergic.
Right.
But outside of that, you're not talking about lifestyle so much before you move in together.
It was not even a consideration for me. I mean, it's funny that our numbers are pretty similar because I feel like you've had way more roommate experiences than I have. But just kind of the way it has stacked up. I've only been in a couple situations where I didn't already know the roommate going into it. And those were when I was young. So like in my dorm in college, I was assigned to 2 people.
Right.
And then when I first moved to Barcelona in college, we had to go find our own apartment. And I didn't really want to waste time on that. I'd only been in the city a few weeks. And so I just like picked one. I had this random like 50-year-old Argentine man named Guillermo.
It was just the 2 of you?
Just the 2 of us. I just like went in, I looked at the place. It was right by the beach and it was good for me.
So, well, quick question on that. As a woman, especially in a different country, did you feel scared at all?
I
safety?
Probably should have. I didn't.
But you
at
didn't.
all.
You were
I
young.
didn't at all. I was young, and like, I mean, I ended up living with him for like maybe 4 months. He was a good man, like it was just good vibes. It wasn't sketchy at all.
Okay.
But like I'm looking back, I'm like, how the fuck did my parents allow that?
Right.
I was only
so
19.
he was like twice your age, more than twice your age.
More than twice my age.
And where does he stack against all the roommates you've ever had in terms of lifestyle, cleanliness, all the things?
So he was very neat. It was an interesting situation because it was the most where I felt like this wasn't my place. Partially because I was new to this country. I spoke Spanish, but not natively like he did. I was still learning.
This was in
Spain.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So everything was new, and we had this very, very small apartment. And so it wasn't a place where I hung out like ever. I was like in my room, but most of the time I was out and about.
Yeah.
So it was probably the most where I didn't feel as comfortable in the common areas, and I just went like straight in, straight out, like cook something real quick.
Right.
But this is not, my own personal space was kind of the vibe.
Got it. So you never hung out in the living room couch
Every
area.
once in a while, we'd like watch a show,
Yeah.
And it was very friendly. He was a very warm person, but we didn't get to know each other like super deeply. It was we were roommates,
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think other situations, I've mostly ended up with friends who maybe I took for granted those things, and just kind of assumed we have similar lifestyles because we're friends,
Right.
Or with partners who I already knew pretty intimately by the time we moved in together.
Well, 1 in 4 friendships who become roommates apparently ends up in a negative situation. How does that stack up for you? So let's say 15 total roommates in your life. That would be about 3 of them ending up negative. Yeah?
It's story time!
Story time, y'all.
Story time.
Story.
You got a story?
Story time. I got a story to
craziest, worst roommate story.
Story to tell.
You don't have to name names, but
right.
What's the story?
So Lisa and I were roommates.
Oh, it involves me. Oh, yeah, we were roommates.
We were roommates
back in the day
for, let's say, 3 months.
Yeah, very briefly.
My sophomore year of college, I had lived in the dorms my freshman year. That's when I met Lisa, and over summer became really close. All right, a bunch of our friends who we call the House of Hoops are going to
rent a house.
Together.
Yeah,
in
not
West
an apartment, but we rented a 4-bedroom house.
4-bedroom house.
It was small. It's not as big as you think it was. Like when you say 4-bedroom,
Yeah.
it was small.
Yeah.
It was 1 story.
So we moved in, I want to say in August. And I didn't know each other that well. You and
Yeah.
I were definitely...
We all knew each other. We all played basketball together.
Yeah. And you had known everyone longer than I had.
By longer, probably like 2 years long. Like
Yeah,
a year or two.
Because I'm
longer.
younger. So pretty new for me going into this situation. And other than my dorm, I'd never had roommates before. So we found ourselves in a unique spot because our house was like the hangout spot. Everyone would come kick it. We had, all these different friends. One was a couple, me, you, and then another girlfriend of ours. Other various people would kind of come and stay over.
Yeah, it was like one of those unlocked door situations where people would come in, hang out.
Everyone would come kick it, play video games, chill, drink, whatever.
Yeah.
And our dear friend was dating a guy at the time.
Well, rewind. Our friends started staying over, right? We also were we all had a bunch of like guy on the couch situation.
Guy on the couch.
Where people needed a temporary living situation for a week or a month, and we had couches. So it was like, all right, stay here.
For sure.
Right. So that's how it started.
That's how it started. And so this one particular person was staying on the couch and was dating our friend. We were not impressed with how he was treating her. So the day in question, me and my other best friend at the time, she had come over. We were going to go to the mall or 3rd Street, something like that. And she's a beautiful person. All the guys wanted to be with her. And so this guy who was dating our friend and sleeping on our couch started trying to get at her. Asking if he could come at the other girl.
Like another friend.
Another friend. Like, bro, you're dating my friend.
Why would I hook you up with
living here because our other friend who you're dating lives here.
Yeah, so why would I hook you up with my other friend?
Tripping. So I called him out and kind of shut that down real quick. Left
the house for that day.
Left the house to go, continue our plans.
Right.
Not realizing the chaos that ensued in my wake.
And so I would have to continue the story because Liz wasn't there.
I was not there. So go ahead. Proceed.
This is as I remember it, okay?
It's been a while.
After Liz left the house and she was pissed about, this guy wanting to be hooked up with this other girl.
Essentially cheat on our friend.
Yeah.
Right in front of us.
He started like talking shit about Liz when she left the house. And, this is what, 21-year-old me, where I'm like, no, not in my house. So
first of all, Lisa's the most loyal friend you could ever have.
And I'm the one
She's got everyone's back.
And I'm the one on the lease, by the way. Like, this is I'm the one renting the house and everyone's paying me. I think it was 2 of us on the lease. Anyway, so I told him, he who was not paying rent, that, hey, don't talk about Liz like that, right? Like, she lives here, she pays rent. You don't. Just don't talk shit about her. Oh man, that did not go over well. He had tried to enlist like the other roommates to be on his side of it, and it became this whole like argument mainly between me and him. And what ended up happening was, and he was way taller than me. Okay,
He's a large man.
I'm 5'2".
He was a 6'3".
No, he's like 6'4",
6'4", 6'5". Yeah.
He was way taller than me.
Basketball player, yeah.
But at the height of this argument where we're in each other's faces and I'm like, stop talking shit about Liz. You don't even live here. And he's like, I can do whatever I want, blah, blah, blah. I happened to be like standing on one step of the porch. Or no, we were both standing on the porch. And there was it was a tiny step. And he got so close into my face. This is a grown-ass man, like right into my face. So I pushed him a tiny bit.
Yeah, get out of my space.
But because he happened to be like where the step was, he didn't fall on his ass. I mean, he fell, right? And then he immediately picked up the house phone. We still had house phones back then because it was like
2006.
Yeah, it was tied to the internet and all that. So
2007.
He picked up the phone, called 911 on my phone. So I'm like, I unplugged the phone. I was like, this is my phone in my house. You're not even like on the lease. Anyway, like the cops came in like 10 minutes. Like they came over and I was like, oh shit, am I gonna get arrested? Like, because I did I pushed him like a tiny bit. I didn't actually push him to where I hurt him, but I was just like, get out of my face. Get out of my face. And then, so the cops, they came into my room and they laughed. They were like, wait, like, are you Lisa? And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, do you live here? I was like, yeah, like I'm on the lease. And then they were like, this gentleman said that you put your hands on him. Like, is that accurate? And then I described to them exactly what happened. I was like, yeah, technically I touched him, but I didn't I didn't do anything to him. He's not hurt or anything. And I'm like, and then I further explained that, you know, he doesn't live here, doesn't pay rent. He'd been sleeping on the couch for a couple of weeks and it's my place. And right, we got into an argument. And then, so they just laughed. They didn't do anything about it. They were like, he's not pressing charges, but, you know, like, figure out your shit.
Right.
So anyway, what happened after that, it just like kind of went downhill, but
it became a house divided.
So there was like half of the house thought that I shouldn't have touched him. And then, long story short, it got so messy, Liz ended up deciding to move out.
It felt like every time I came home, they were talking shit.
Yeah.
In my own home.
Yeah. So think about
I left.
The person paying rent, who's on also like, I don't know if you're on the lease or not, but you're paying rent. You wanted your private space. You wanted to be left alone. You didn't feel comfortable in your own home.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was like a hostile environment. And
so you had to leave, which at the time, the financial onus was on me because we had to fill in the room. And if we couldn't, we would have to pay, you know, I'd have to pay extra. Luckily, we got another friend to move in. You know, I proceeded to live there for the next 2 years. We had our ups and downs. We were young.
So, but that continued to affect my friendships with those people forever. Like some of them I was never friends with again, really. Yeah. And then others, there was always a distance.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because I do think there's phases of life and roommates because I'm 37 now. I don't even know my age. I'm 37 and like the most recent roommates I had, great situation. Everybody's helping everyone. Everyone's clean. Everyone's paying their rent on time. They help out with the dogs. We all communicate about who's doing laundry, who's out, right?
Right.
It's great. Very different from 15 years ago when like house drama, house divided, like, you know, okay. Yeah, toilet paper is the other story for those who are watching the video. We have some toilet paper here. What does this represent? That was the same era.
Same era. One of the roommates.
A different roommate.
Mm-hmm. At that time kind of took the mom role upon herself.
Mm-hmm. House mother.
For no reason, house mother. And at the time, like, I was poor. Like I was struggling. We were broke.
Yeah, I was poor.
She was not. She came from money. Yeah. She, tended to do well. So, and mind you, I was 18 at the time.
Yeah, I was 20.
Yeah, we were young. Mm-hmm. So she would go on these shopping trips and buy all kinds of supplies for the house.
Yeah, like Costco sized toilet paper and cleaning supplies, trash bags, stuff that like, yes, we would need.
But then she would just like, oh, here's the bill.
Yeah.
Like,
here's the bill.
I didn't ask you for this.
Right. Divided by 4 people, you owe me $65. And we're like, I don't have $65.
Right.
And I didn't have a say in the stuff. And her argument was like, well, you're going to use it. Like, we need toilet paper in the bathrooms. And I'm like, yeah, but I'll get my own. Or let us discuss.
Or like piecemeal as it's needed. Not, one bill.
Not all of us can buy in bulk.
Right.
Like at this
come on now,
stage
some
of our finances. So that was also a unique story, but maybe not so unique. I'm sure other people have that too. Like, unless you're communicating and unless you guys are in the same boat financially and agree on things like that, it's gonna cause some dilemmas.
Sure. I think there are. It's often a situation where one person feels like they're doing more of that. Like, I'm the one that always takes the trash out, or I'm the one that always replenishes these things because either I think about it or I'm, more responsible or whatever.
Yeah.
And often those go left unsaid. It kind of depends on the personality. I think it's harder when you're friends to vocalize those things because you don't want it to affect the friendship.
Yeah.
So you have lived mostly with friends, completely with friends?
I had a stint of a year or two living by myself.
Right. But
Yeah.
your roommates have always been
in terms of friends. Nope.
No?
I've had Craigslist roommates.
Okay. Okay.
So this was in my Palms days. Palms is a neighborhood in Los Angeles.
Oh, yep.
Yeah, we filled, there was a vacant room. It was a 3-bedroom place. So me and the other homie, like we lived together for like 10 years, but we had to fill this room a couple times because like people would stay for like 6 months or whatever. We had a couple of Craigslist roommates. One of them like didn't talk to us at all. It was the straight, like, I'm gonna go to my room and I'm gonna leave, which is not a bad thing. Like, cool. Common areas are all ours, whatever. It's cool. We're just not friends. The other one, same kind of deal. He mostly kept to himself and didn't hang out with us. And we'd chat occasionally. It was cordial. It was cool. But it didn't last long. It was just like a couple months, and then, all right, we had to fill that again. Oh, and one more. Back into that House of Hoops days that are, 15, 16 years ago. We also did a Craigslist roommate in that place too, and that one was interesting. He actually hung out with us and tried to become like
part of the
group of friends. Oh, no. How am I forgetting? He wasn't a Craigslist person. Me and the roommates all went out one night in Hollywood. Like, it was a night out, drunk. And then he somehow came home with us. Like, he ended up at the house playing video games with us.
You acquired a roommate?
We acquired a roommate. And that night, like, we just happened to say, like, oh, yeah, we have a room vacant. And he was like, I'm looking for a spot. So talk about not vetting. We didn't vet him at all. It ended up being, like, okay, but he did get a little bit weird. I believe he was in the military prior, and he had PTSD, and he had certain things he was dealing with that us as like 20, 21-year-olds didn't really understand.
Sure.
I don't know that it caused any like major drama, but I do remember him like sometimes being to himself and not talking at all, but then sometimes like playing video games till like 4 a.m. with the other roommates.
Right.
Yeah. So it is just the whole gamut. Like, you got to pre-vet. I think there has to be more pre-vetting of people.
For sure. You have to be deliberate about this. I think from my own experience, like you can take it very casually.
At any age, you think?
Yeah, I think so. I think especially living with friends, I think people just give it the benefit of the doubt and don't always consider the ramifications of that.
But what kind of questions would you have to ask each other? Because like, what if someone doesn't know that they're messy? What if someone doesn't know that, this is my pet peeve, that they throw banana peels in a trash can that doesn't have a lid? That's going to smell. And there's going to be flies. It's like, what if someone doesn't notice that they do that?
Yeah, I don't think everyone is self-aware enough. Or they're trying to put their best foot forward
because they need the
they're trying to get
it. Yeah, they're trying to get it.
I think that's a challenge. Like, it's almost like in a job interview, like you're going to polish yourself up to try to make this work. When in reality, it should be like a mutual interview. We should be trying to make sure that this is compatible. And people aren't going to be like, oh, no, I don't pay my rent on time.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
I'm a slob who is always late on rent. Like, who's going to admit to that?
So we talked a little bit about the financial cost. Obviously, getting roommates helps with finances because of just like rentals, right?
For sure.
I actually don't know, but what is like a 1-bedroom compared to a 2-bedroom right now?
Like LA biased, obviously.
Yeah.
I have a little bit of awareness. I think it depends on
the neighborhood.
On the neighborhood and then like the type of unit. So I've recently been looking at like high-end like luxury apartments, and a 1-bedroom can be like $2,500 to $3,000
to $5,000
to $5,000. Yeah. Whereas a 2-bedroom, it's like definitely incrementally smaller. It might be like $3,600, $4,000 to $6,000. So it's not double for sure.
Okay, it's not double.
It's definitely not double.
So you can save some money by getting a 2-bedroom instead of a 1-bedroom.
I think that's the interesting thing, and that's kind of the component, is like it doesn't just double your rent.
Right.
You definitely have the cost savings.
Yeah.
Which is compelling for sure.
Yeah.
And then that's kind of the trade-off of like, I want a nicer place. Like some people that really want to live alone, they're like, okay, well, maybe I'll get a studio because it's cheaper versus having a place with more space or more amenities otherwise.
Okay, so have you mostly roomed with women or with men?
By the numbers, it might be split because I had 2 experiences in college. I had 2 female roommates, and then later in my my time in Barcelona, I had 4 female roommates. So kind of all in one go.
Yeah.
But I feel like more time in my life, I've lived with guys, either friends or my partners for sure.
All right. Can we talk a little bit about the social cost of that, like the dynamic of living with a guy, whether that's related to dating or for them dating?
Definitely. So I have one particular experience where I moved in with a friend of ours that, we went to college with. This was, I think I was like 27 at the time. Yeah. He and his brother had a condo, and I moved in. I was a 3rd roommate. And it was interesting because at the time, I was talking to one of our other friends from college. So they were like bros.
Okay, so you were dating the friend of...
the guy who became my roommate. So I was dating the friend, and I think the guy I was dating kind of felt some type of way about it. He never like really
said anything,
verbalized that, but we had independent relationships. They were very close, and then I was very close to the guy who became my roommate, and so it wasn't like I ran it by him. It was like, oh, I'm moving in with them,
right?
And I think he felt some type of way, but that was kind of mild, and it didn't last enough to become an issue. But for my roommate, it definitely came up as he was dating. Mm-hmm. Women did not like that.
Yeah.
And ultimately, he ended up getting into a relationship, and like that's why we had to move out. He ended up getting married.
Yeah.
And it affected my friendship with him long term. Mm-hmm. Like we're cool, and I'm cool with his wife, but in a specific way.
But I do think that, and maybe it's partially that you were roommates, but that could also happen if just as friends too.
Definitely.
Right?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was an interesting dynamic. I don't think I've had situations where I was like seriously dating someone long term while I lived with a guy roommate.
Yeah.
Not that I can think of. So I haven't had to navigate that. What about you?
So I don't know if I'm just in my own head. I'm just very like, new age, modern, like it shouldn't matter. But in hindsight, I could see how it probably affected my dating life. Actually, if I look back, there have been a couple of guys I've dated or like I swiped right on Tinder who were like, oh, you live with a guy? Like, nah, that's a no for me. And back then I would get upset about it. Like, come on, like, are you that insecure? Like, can you not trust a person or whatever? Right. But if I like put on my other hat and like try to like empathize with that, like I could also see that, right? Like whether it is a pride thing of like, oh, I'm not going to have a girl I'm dating, like, this guy has access to her.
Right.
But like, I could understand that even though I don't see it like that. You kind of have to understand that different people come from different backgrounds.
That's a no for me.
No?
No.
Like it's just an absolute...
Yeah, that's bullshit. You trust me or you don't. You're comfortable with it or you don't.
Yeah, but we're talking about the beginning stages of dating. Like someone doesn't know you, so it's one of those filters where they're just like, I'm not even going to bother getting into that, like giving it a shot because there's already this big flag.
That's fair. I don't have to empathize with it though.
Yeah,
I can still think
it's no. That's what I'm saying.
I can still think it's BS.
I thought it was BS at the time, but now in hindsight, I'm just kind of like more open to seeing different people's perspectives and why they would think like that.
Yeah.
And if we just completely look at it differently, that's not compatible.
For sure.
And that's a test of compatibility like up front.
For sure.
That makes sense.
How has your experience having male roommates been different from your experience having female roommates? Is there a difference?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. So the biggest differentiators, I probably have had half and half. I have to look back on the numbers.
Yeah.
And in phases. So early on when I was younger, in my 20s, I'd say like my female roommates for the most part wanted to be friends and hang out all the time. And I didn't have a problem with that, except for like when it came to be like kind of like almost dependent on each other and don't get to be like do my own thing. Whereas women I'd say that I've lived with in the last decade or so in my 30s, we're friends, we hang out more, we talk, but there's less of that dependence. So it's great. It's like a great situation all around. For the guys I've lived with the entire time, doesn't matter our age 19, 25, 35, it's always been like we can chill, drink together, play video games together, throw parties and have fun. And it's cool. Like that's it. No drama.
You've been really lucky.
Yeah. I feel like I've had great roommates and like I'm friends with majority of them, but I probably 1 in 4 probably ended up negatively too. But like
interesting.
Maybe a little less, but the majority are still.
And some you've had long term.
Right.
Roommates.
An interesting thing though is like when I was around 31, I don't know, early 30s, I decided I wanted to live alone for once. I knew that it was going to be tough because I had 2 dogs and like I was paying for a dog walker to help me out when I was at work and things like that. But I decided I wanted to live alone. When I lived alone, I realized a couple things. 1, I missed the connection and like having people to hang out with. And 2, I didn't always feel safe. Like even though I lived in a very nice neighborhood, safe place, big complex, so there was always people around, I sometimes still felt scared like walking the dogs at night and then coming into my place, like is someone going to follow me? And so after that, I had roommates again for the next 5-6 years, partially because I liked the companionship, partially because I liked saving money.
For sure.
But it was also just feeling safe again.
It makes a lot of sense. I don't know that has been a particular thing for me. I've lived alone for a few different periods, and I don't think that this safety was a specific concern, but there was a feeling, especially in like one of the places that I lived in, where it'd be like at night all alone. I didn't necessarily consider it safety, but it was like just an awareness.
Yeah.
And that could borderline on like, oh, I feel lonely, or I like to have even just like that background noise.
Yeah.
You know, like we both have a lot of siblings. I have 5 siblings. I grew up in a house that always had people, always had something going on. And like it was very normal for me my whole life growing up to like the TV's on, there's a game on in the background and I'm doing my thing, but it's still there. So we're kind of interacting, even though we're doing our own thing. And I definitely missed that at times. Especially the second time I lived alone, I was in Orange County, so I was further away. So I definitely didn't have that like pop in, drive 5 minutes to see you like I did with when you lived alone. Right. I was like damn near your other roommate.
Yeah, exactly. Do you think there's a stigma for keeping roommates like longer, like later into life, in your 30s, into your 40s?
Yeah,
your 50s?
Absolutely.
Still?
I think so. I mean, I think it depends on the city that you live in. Like, I feel like in New York City, for example, probably not, just because it's so crazy expensive and it's just almost expected. And maybe to some extent here in LA. But yeah, I think there's like a certain sense of judgment. Like people consider it to be kind of arrested development. Like your roommates are going to be like your frat bros or like your, do some college kid shit. When the reality is it's just a practical decision most of the time. Although I do think I experienced a lot of benefits. I'm a pretty independent person anyway, but I think it's worthwhile for people to live alone, to have that experience. And you may not like it if you can afford it. Of course. It's like definitely a privilege to be able to do that. But it's interesting because I think some people go from, like living at home amongst their family, living with roommates, and then maybe get married or cohabitate and never have that experience of living alone. And maybe that's fine, but I do think you learn a lot about yourself.
Yeah.
And what you are and aren't comfortable with. And like having to sit with yourself all the time can be challenging. but it can be rewarding and create a lot of growth as well.
On the flip side, I work with a lot of clients like through financial counseling, where some people want to live alone to a fault, like to where it's affecting their finances so much. Like that is what their one deal breaker. They will not get a roommate. And I'm like, yeah, but you could literally free up $1,000 a month, do it for 6 months. That's $6,000. That's your emergency fund. Right. And so, I'm very open to like working with people and figuring out what their non-negotiables are and what they're willing to give on. But sometimes like housing, man, it's
the biggest cost that we have.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It's huge.
That's a really interesting one because I think I'm at that point now.
Oh yeah. Cause are you going to be looking for a place anytime soon?
I'm starting to look. So background, I came out of a serious relationship. So I've moved back home around my family. And that's been really rewarding, especially like my grandmother, who's, 87-ish, lives with us, and I get to spend a lot of time with her, but I'm kind of transitioning. So I will not even consider having a roommate. Like unless they're my partner, I don't want any part of it. I'm gonna live alone. But I really enjoyed living alone. And I want to have my space. I don't feel like I necessarily need that companionship. But we'll see. It may feel different this time.
Liz is also not scared of anything.
Yeah, no, I don't get scared.
She's like, oh, there's someone creepy on the corner. Here, let me get in the car and let me go check it out. And I'm like, no, Liz, you leave that man alone. Like, just stay at home and don't. Yeah,
ADHD, bro.
Yeah. So anyway, It makes sense.
Yeah. So I think that's interesting. I probably won't be looking for a roommate.
Well, I guess, are you giving your answer away already?
Well, let's get into it.
All right.
It's about that time.
All right. So 20 cents. 20 cents is the segment of the show where both Lizzy and myself, Lissa, each get 60 seconds to give our 2 cents on today's topic, which is roommates, and whether we think it is a net positive or a net negative. Where does 20 cents come from?
Because you get the opinion of 2 dimes.
2 dimes.
2.
All right, Liz.
60 seconds on the clock.
60 seconds on the clock. Are roommates worth it?
Shit, I'm struggling. So right now, I have roommates. Mm-hmm. My mom, my dad, our dog, and my grandma. And it is absolutely worth it for me going through a really challenging time and kind of this big transition and having the comfort of my family there, having the presence of people and the companionship, and then additionally getting to spend a really large amount of time with my grandmother, who is older and won't be with us forever. That said, this is a temporary period, and going forward, I'm starting to look and kind of create my plan for when I move back out and get a place by myself. So my take is net negative for me right now overall, because I really enjoy living by myself.
All right. Net negative on roommates for Lizzy.
What you got, girl? You've been the roommate queen since I've known you.
All right, here we go.
Almost all our friends have lived with you.
Yeah, that's actually interesting. A lot of friends have lived with me. So I have lived with roommates majority of my adult life, except for a couple of years. I've loved every second of it because most times they've been friends that I get along with, that it's nice to have people there. I've also made a lot of money from having roommates, because for a long time we would rent, from an apartment complex or a landlord. But in the last, 5 to 8 years, most of my roommates were me house hacking, which meant I'm the landlord and they're paying rent to me and helping me pay my mortgage. So I love roommates. But that said, I'm in a phase of my life where I'm about to get married. My roommate now is my partner, so I don't know if you consider that roommates. So in terms of roommates outside of the relationship, it is also a net negative for me. I know. I have a lot to say about roommates.
Well, we didn't talk about your house hacking situation in detail, so
but
you had to give some context.
Net negative. I'm not saying I don't want to live with my partner. I don't count him as like
Alan,
roommate.
you're moving out.
Yeah, he's, I don't know, family, he's partner, he's...
Cohabitating is different.
Okay.
I think with a
But
partner. It's a little
I guess
different.
Friend roommates or non-partner roommates is a net negative for me.
Net negative.
Net
We're
negative.
done with it.
We're done with
all
roommates.
that.
All right. So remember, this is what we think. We're both net negative on roommates right now at this moment in time, but can't nobody make that decision but you. So what do you think? Are roommates worth it?
Hit us up and let us know what you think. DM us on Instagram at netnetpodcast or email us at hi@netnetpodcast.com. And if you want to follow us individually, here's where you can find us.
I'm at Wealth for Women of Color on TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram.
And you can follow me on Instagram and TikTok at live_well_Lizzy.
All references, statistics, and resources mentioned can be found in our show notes. This podcast is for educational, informational, and entertainment purposes only and should not be constituted as financial advice. Remember to always do your own research, consult a professional as needed, and feel empowered to make your own damn decisions.